In this episode, I'm breaking one of my own self-imposed rules for this series. No talking about crowd-funded projects. Why am I making an exception for these products? Well, let me explain. The demo portion of this video is really long, so I'll try and keep this part short. I had a bad experience with a non-DJ related Kickstarter campaign a while back, and that led me to say I'm not going to cover crowdfunding stuff again. Thing is though, the last time I did was for the Menura Audio MDMX, a really unusual modular DJ mixer. That crowdfunding campaign went well, people received the product that they had backed, and as my subsequent review showed, the product was really awesome. Subsequently, the German company released two analogue effects units, an isolator and filter, which I also reviewed and liked a lot. Now they're looking to expand their MDFX lineup with two new digital devices, a delay and a reverb. They're launching those via another Kickstarter campaign, which obviously gives me a little pause. Their explanation is that they, and I quote, just don't have the funds to produce them in a quantity which makes sense. And you know what? I'm entirely sympathetic to that. These new units, being digital devices, can't draw on existing internals which they've already developed for the mixer, as the isolator and filter did before. And getting manufacturing up to speed on products like this is a challenging thing for a small company. Ultimately, I get the feeling that Menura Audio is really just a passion project for the people behind it, because it certainly isn't making them rich. So here's why I am covering them. I'm going to be very clear. With any crowdfunding project, there is always a chance you won't get exactly what you paid for, and you should exercise an appropriate level of caution before putting any money down. But unlike with, say, Indiegogo, if a Kickstarter doesn't fund, backers don't lose their investment. And Menura have proved themselves to be able to deliver on their promises in the past. They have a good track record, which means I am going to cover these, but as always, buyer beware. The other reason I'm covering these new MDFX devices is because, as far as the prototypes I've been testing go, they are pretty sick. I've been chasing the ideal external effects unit for a long time. I own a bunch and I've tested more. The main things I'm personally looking for from effects units is the ability to run them fully wet, to avoid phasing on regular send and return loops. That discounts modern RMX units from Pioneer DJ and Alpha Theta. I also want precise control over the BPM for tempo sync delays and good sound quality. As you'll see, the new MDFX units cover all three of those points pretty well. They can be run fully wet, bypassing the dry signal, the BPM detection is pretty solid, and great sound quality has always been a hallmark of Menura Audio products, with things being no different here. The construction is identical to the original MDFX units, with tank-like metal build all around. These things could double as a weapon in hand-to-hand combat. They're supplied with very powerful magnets on one side, which will ensure they stay solidly locked in place on the side of a mixer with a steel body, although those magnets are removable if you don't need them. One area they've now nailed, which I called out in the past, is their custom knob design. They are completely solid on the pots now. You've got chunky TRS metal jack connections on each end, so they will work with balanced master inserts and a USB port on each end too. With these being digital devices, those USB ports have a larger part to play than they did before. You can connect the units up to a computer and use MIDI over USB to send MIDI clock, which I tested and it works great, and even send and receive control messages, driverless. They even work as a one stereo in audio interface, so you can record the incoming signal to your computer pre or post effects. Of course, you don't have to connect the MDFX units to a computer. You can also just use the port to power them from a USB power supply or even a power bank. Like with the older units, Menura can supply adapters so you can link both of them together, and I assume build any combo with those analog ones too. A couple of other things to mention before we get into the demos. The pricing is set to start at €344 when the Kickstarter campaign launches on July 1st, and I'm not sure how much the regular price will be after that. That's basically a solid ballpark kind of price for high quality single effects units like these. I'm thinking of devices like the Zen Delay from Erica Synths, so I'm fine with that. Another thing to point out is the display. When Menura first told me about these, I didn't expect them to have a display at all, at least not one of this quality. Yes, it is very tiny, but everything is very legible and they pack a remarkable amount of functionality into it. I'm not entirely sure I prefer the kind of domed covering on there. I think I'd like a flat display better, but it works nicely enough. One final note, level management worked well in other situations, but when I tried to run the MDFX units as an insert between a CDJ and a mixer, I found that the level coming from the CDJ was just too high for them, and I couldn't find a way to correct that myself. So unless I've missed something, I'd like Menura to come up with a fix for that, either a specific volume pad or a level adjustment, because I know a lot of DJs do like to run effects units in that kind of configuration. Right, let's give you a demo of the delay first of all. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is this dry and wet control. Now, typically on a lot of DJ effects units, ones that are made for DJs or used by DJs, you have an issue because they work fine as inserts where you've got the dry and the wet signal both coming through. But when you put them onto a regular aux send system like on this Union Audio 4 valve, you get this, you get phasing because it's sending the dry signal is going from the channel into the mix bus, and also it's going out through the effects loop, and that same signal is coming back in, therefore it's duplicated, therefore you get phasing. So a lot of effects units won't work with a mixer like this unless you put it on the master insert. This one though, you go fully clockwise on the dry wet, and we are good to go. It just cuts the dry signal out entirely and it will work. So this will work with basically any DJ mixer send and return system that I've ever seen. This will work with anything. So that's great. We've then got the on-off button, we've got the feedback dial, the beat division dial, the time dial at the top, and then we've got these parameters in the middle. Right now we're just on a regular straight delay, no parameters changed or anything. What I do want to point out, the BPM detection, the audio BPM detection, it's good, it's not perfect. Now this has got 124 right now, which is what this track is, but it's kind of fluctuating between 123, there we go, 123 and 124. And different tracks will give you different results, different levels will give you different results. It's pretty good, as I say. I've seen a lot worse. It's not quite the gold standard, which to me is Pioneer DJ Alpha Theta BPM detection. That's the best. They're better than anyone else at this, but it's not bad at all. But you can also synchronize it to MIDI clock, or you can switch into tap mode. Then you can just tap it with the tempo button. 124, right, so we're at 124. What I'd love to see is the ability to dial in a BPM manually on here. That's something, if, you know, I would just all the time. Because sometimes whatever you're putting in there, you want a different BPM, you want to maybe halve it or double it or whatever else. So I'd love to be able to just hold that tempo button and dial in a BPM. That for me would be a great upgrade here in the software once they get to, or in the firmware once they get to that. But let's turn this on. So we've got the correct BPM, 1 beat delay. We see we've got our level meters at the bottom, so we can see if we're getting too loud. Need to adjust our send level. Immediately though, you can hear the quality. Just very, very good quality. Let's get into some parameters though, or in fact, we'll just take you through some beat division. There's a half beat. Just great quality all around, right? So let's get into some other parameters. So we've got a filter type, so we can have full frequencies there as we have now, or we can go for a low pass or a high pass on there. So press the button again, we can now do the cutoff. And I will always go for a high pass on my delay as a rule, because I don't want anything to happen to the kicks and the bass. I want those to be clean. I want my delays to just be running on the mids and highs. But you can choose, you can have just low pass or all the frequencies, whatever you like. Then we've got spread. So at the moment, this is like a mono delay. But if you're running on a stereo system, which not all club systems are stereo, so this might be redundant, but you can widen the delay out. So we can go a little bit wider. So here we've got a bit of stereo movement there, it's getting wider, and then if we go fully wide, it's basically like a ping pong delay, which does sound phenomenal. But yeah, just be careful because not every club system is running in stereo throughout. But yeah, I love that though. When you can use stereo, use it because it's great. Let's go back to mono for now though. Next one, we've got the pitch, so we can kind of pitch the tail up and down. Right now it's at the regular frequency. Let's go up. Which does sound amazing. Or down. Or just a little bit, either way. And this might be better with like melodic content. But the quality's still there. The tail, it always tails off clean. There's never any cut off or anything like that. It doesn't seem like there's any memory limitations with this. Yeah, I just, whew. So yeah, that's really cool. So put that back where it was. Now the grid, we can either lock the time divisions to the grid, so like 1 beat, 3/4, half beat, quarter, you know, etc. Or we can go for a more loose kind of sweep mode through the time instead. So let's do that. Let's change that over to that. So you can just get some really sideways stuff with that. Again, I'm typically a rhythmic delay person, but there is definitely a time and a place for that more loose style of delay as well. So they're both. Like if I'm just running a delay on like an acapella or maybe just like a hi-hat line or something like that, that's when I want to get into that more loose feel with that. But yeah, loving that. Then we got tape, and I would generally always turn a bit of tape on here. Basically all it does is add a bit of wow and flutter, saturation, and it just makes it a bit more analog feeling, a bit more live, a bit more alive. So for me, like a 3/4, with that kind of high pass cut off, the tape on it. Just gives it that real alive kind of feel. And of course you can change the beat values. Yeah, so yeah, loving a bit of tape on there. We'll take that off for now. And let's go back in. So the next one along is ducking. This is not BPM dependent, this is it's basically side chaining the delay according to the level of the audio that's coming in. So if we turn it up, we're just kind of on the kicks now, let's turn that up. So I'm cutting the crossfader in and out. So as the crossfader goes out, the delay kicks in more. There's basically nothing there. So yeah, really interesting effect having that ducking on there. And then we got direction, so we can have forward or reverse for the delay. This might be better if we go on to a longer time. Let's go to 4/1. Turn up the feedback. So now it's reversing that tail. Probably wasn't a good idea to do 4/1, but there you go. So that's not a feature, again, it's not one I'd use that much. I'm a forward kind of guy, but you can see how the potential's there, depending on what you want to do with your delay. And that's the whole thing, right? This is just incredibly customizable to whatever kind of sounds you want. And for me, there is plenty there to be getting on with. Right, let's get into the reverb. Very similar in many ways, same form factor, the same dry-wet control, so you can have it as an insert or go fully wet and then you don't get the phasing. Same BPM detection, so it's good, it's not perfect. Again, it's picking this up at 123, it's not 123. So I'm gonna switch that over to tap mode. Get 124 locked in there. There's only really one effect on here that relies on the BPM, but it's worth having it locked in correctly if you're going to use that effect. Obviously, for me, it wouldn't really matter with this because it's more of a, you know, it's an organic instrument rather than a rhythmic locked instrument. But you get, you know, we'll use that one feature. Obviously this is now just a straight reverb, no filters, no nothing. Let's turn it on. In fact, what we'll do with this, we're going to go over to an a cappella. Because generally if I'm using reverbs, I'm using them on more, you know, melodic stuff rather than percussion. You might want to use them on percussion, of course, but for me, and you can hear just studio quality, absolutely, sounds beautiful. And you can adjust the room size on the fly and get some really interesting effects that way. That's not something I see people doing that often with reverbs, and I'm surprised because, yeah, I use it quite a lot. Adjusting that room size, you get that kind of tapey kind of effect. Lovely, right? So let's move on. We've obviously got the BPM. Again, we can do auto BPM detection, we can do MIDI clock, or we can tap. Then we go through the other parameters. Oh, and the other thing, this freeze button, you can use that to tap. Even if you're not on the BPM screen, you can still tap with that. So let's go through. We've got a high pass. As with delays, I always prefer to high pass my reverbs as well. But we won't hear because next up is, oh no, we've got ducking. So the same thing as on the delay. So it's just kind of side chaining the reverb according to the incoming signal. So you get that kind of ducking on there. Then we've got damping. This is why I turned off the high pass, because the damping, they say it takes it from bright and metallic to warm and natural. To me, it takes it more kind of low end. So damping right up here now. And then this is right off. When I'm doing a reverb, I want this sound here. You might not, you might like the damping styles, but yeah, for me, I prefer it fully turned off. Then we've got the tremolo, which is why we did the BPM. So you can hear that, obviously cutting in and out, or ducking in and out with the BPM. Then we got shimmer, which is something I absolutely love. What it's doing is basically adding in an octave up pitch tail. Which, used on the right material at the right time, sounds absolutely wonderful. I love shimmer whenever I've come across it on other devices. It's like makes a pad almost out of the reverb. And we can take that one step further with the freeze button, which basically just freezes what you've got going on. So hold that down, and then that can just, you can bring in another track, you know, you're freezing that all off. One thing I would like to see on here from my initial testing, I can't find a way to make this like a latching button. I'd like the ability, if you hold it down for more than like 3 seconds, it just stays locked. Because right now if I let go, it goes back to where it was. And so yeah, I'd much rather have the actual freeze, you know, just be able to freeze it off. But yeah. So, yeah, that's shimmer. Take the shimmer off. Last one is lo-fi, which kind of replicates that kind of 80s digital delay sound. Bit crushes it down a bit. Not really one for me. I'm not a big fan of distortions and bit crushers and stuff, but again, for you, that might be the sound you're looking for. And as with the delay, this thing is just, yeah, completely customizable. Speaking of customizing, I should talk you through what we do with the... Let's go back to that track there. I should talk you through what we do with the menu here. So the parameter button, if we hold that down, we have options. So firstly, you can save presets. We've got the MIDI options. We can enter into there, so we can turn MIDI off, receive, send, and back. Let's go back. Then we've also got the view, which is quite interesting, because we can go between the view modes here, right? So we can have the visual with all those little animations, or we can just have text. So let's exit out of there. And exit again. And now each one, rather than the animation, it's just got basically a bar to show you how much it's turned up and turned down. So lo-fi, auto BPM. So this is a clearer interface, you know, in a lot of ways, right? We can turn the ducking up and down. So it's just like a bar graph going across. And I think, although the other one looks cooler, this is probably the view I would use, just because it's very straightforward, at a glance. Everything's kind of different colors as well. So once you've got to know this, you would know what the different ones are. I don't know, it's nice to have the choice. On a device like this, having options like that is kind of killer, right? So that's that as well. There's other stuff in the menus too. So we can also sort out the recording aspect there. There's firmware updates as well. So yeah, lots of ways to kind of tweak this thing. Obviously we're going to the presets. So we've got factory presets, or we can save our own presets, and that's great too. So let's go into there and we can name it and everything else. Like, it's pretty wild, really. Don't know how to get out of this now. Shouldn't have done that, never mind. Hold, confirm. There we go, so preset L we've now got. So, and you can also, on the view mode, you can hide different things too. Let's go back to factory. Reset, there we go. Yeah, but you can also, if there's effect, or if there are features you don't use, we'll go into the view, pages, we can actually take out the page. So I might never want to use the damping page, so I can turn that off. And maybe the ducking one I'm not going to use either. So let's go through. Now we go back, exit, and now we go through, and those are no longer there, which means it's quicker to get to the ones that I do use. And so again, really just customizable. And in such a small compact device, that's really quite impressive stuff. So there you go, a first look at the MDFX delay and reverb units from Menura Audio. Putting aside all the crowdfunding stuff, I am seriously impressed. As always, this company delivers when it comes to sound quality, and the hands-on performance style of control really works for me, as does the form factor. These will clearly find homes in a lot of studios, but they are obviously designed with the DJ booth in mind first and foremost, which a lot of effects units simply aren't. Pricing looks very reasonable too, and overall I am excited to play with the finished versions, assuming they do get funded. In the comments, let me know your thoughts on these new MDFX devices, and tell me about your favourite effects units, whether the mainstream ones or some more obscure items. As always, sound off down below. Thanks for watching this episode of Beatport Tech. If you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And hey, if you haven't already, you can try Beatport streaming for free and join DJcity for just $10. All the links are down in the description. I'll see you next time!